Hello, this is Mark Sims. Just wanted to let you know we're waiting for a few more participants to log on and we'll get underway shortly. I appreciate you being here, hanging in with your patients. We'll be with you shortly, okay? Look forward to doing the presentation. Hello, I'm Mark Sims. Welcome to the Arizona Hearing Center Hearing Loss webinar on Earlens. We're excited to present this revolutionary and awesome hearing technology. The webinar will consist of a slide presentation, and then after that, we'll go over questions and answers. Down below, you can press chat and you can submit your questions and we'll get through as many as we can and answer all of your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and this is going to be a great presentation. And again, thank you for coming. The Arizona Hearing Center's mission is to help our patients, their families and friends, and the community transform their lives and connections by improving hearing, communication, and knowledge about hearing loss. You can see that I accented or highlighted the knowledge about hearing loss, and that's what we're here today to do, to teach you more about hearing loss and potential hearing loss treatments. And I'm excited that you're here, and we're going to cover some great material. You know, imagine what it'd be like to get out of every day and be happy-go-lucky like this guy is. You wouldn't have to ask people to repeat themselves. You wouldn't have to turn up the TV on the volume. You wouldn't say huh or what. Your family wouldn't look at you frustrated when they had to repeat something. You'd gladly answer the phone or the door. You'd look forward to going to a party or going to a restaurant. This is about conversations, connecting with your friends and family and loved ones. And this is what we want everybody to feel like. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. You know, sometimes you don't want to ask people to have to repeat themselves again and again. Your loved ones complain about your hearing loss. They might say you need to get hearing aids or go get a hearing aid. And sometimes you don't even realize you have a hearing loss and they think you do. And that becomes a point of conflict in and of themselves. Sometimes people say, oh, I don't want hearing aids. You know, of course, nobody does want hearing aids, but you know, you dread answering the phone. You know people are talking to you, but you can't understand what they're saying. You know, have any of you ever felt like this? I know a lot of people who have. This is my brother, Robbie. I lost him twice. I lost him to hearing loss, and then he died in his mid-40s. He had a brain tumor. It required radiation, and an unfortunate side effect of that radiation was that he lost his hearing. And I watched him slowly become more and more disconnected. He would be more and more frustrated and anxious. He became depressed. He was not as connected with people. It became harder and harder for people to communicate with him. And slowly, his hearing loss took his life away from a social and a connection point of view. And then unfortunately, I lost him again in his 40s. And you know, I miss him. And this was my wake-up call, or why my calling is to make sure that people have their hearing loss well treated. You know, over my past 20 years in my career, patients have told me over and over again that they have hearing technology or hearing aids, yet they still can't hear. They've either returned the hearing aids, they sit in the nightstand drawer, or they wear them and they don't hear well. They'll tell me that they know people are talking to them, but they can't understand. They do terribly in social environments, at restaurants. They're just not happy with their hearing technology. Well, here's my promise. My promise is that you will better understand hearing loss, that you'll understand how to better treat your hearing loss and why certain technologies have certain limitations. That's what I want you to know. I want you to be able to maintain your social connections with your loved ones and friends, and to remain independent. And that's what we're going to get out of this presentation. My name is Mark Sims. I'm a otolaryngologist who is a neuro-otologist or otologist. I am a ENT. So the tongue twister name for ENT is otolaryngology, and the oto part means ear. And I just specialize in people's ear disease. I've performed over 10,000 surgeries over the past 20 years. I've spoken to thousands of patients about their hearing loss. I've even authored a book called Listen Up. It's a physician's guide for people to practically treat their hearing loss effectively. It's available on Amazon and you can get it. Today, we're going to share about what I've learned about hearing loss, why certain people don't do well, and how we can effectively treat your hearing loss. And I'm excited to share this information with you. This is going to be great. There are various different effects of hearing loss. One is just fatigue. You know, when people have hearing loss, the way they compensate for it is through lip reading, which is looking at people's face, mouth, and lips and seeing what they're saying, and using context. Once you know what the subject matter is that people are talking about, from that, your brain can fill in the blanks of what they're not hearing. This takes more work. People are oftentimes anxious. They don't want to go into social situations where they know that they'll have to hear and they won't be able to. Sometimes they're just as reticent of just approaching somebody at a checkout or placing an order at a restaurant. And as this becomes harder and harder, they can become irritable. You'll become irritable if you're tired and anxious. And as you have harder and harder problems with conversations, you'll become more and more socially isolated. You know, each time somebody says, or you make them repeat themselves, it gets worse and worse. I tell people hearing loss is like baseball, except it's harder. You get 2 strikes instead of 3. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, somebody says something to them, you say, what? They say it again, you say, huh? And then they say, forget it. You strike out after 2 tries. And so the social isolation that occurs, I tell people it's like death of 1,000 paper cuts. It's a very, very slow process. And suddenly people don't like going to parties. They don't want to be at family gatherings. They kind of want to be on their own. And these are the effects of hearing loss, sadly. And then as all of these things mount, the fatigue, the anxiety, the irritability, and the isolation, people can oftentimes get depressed. While the brain is working harder and harder to compensate for this hearing loss, and you're less and less connected with people around you, your brain's doing less and less processing because it's getting less and less information, you have cognitive decline. Hearing loss is associated with Alzheimer's and dementia, untreated hearing loss. Well, this is what happens. This is an audiogram. People are very familiar with this. This is how we measure people's hearing, okay? And so going from the top to bottom is volume or loudness. And we measure that in decibel, which is a hearing level or intensity. And so 0 to around 25 is normal. And as it goes down, the normal conversation is here. So one of the things people don't oftentimes realize that this is a logarithmic scale. So you double about every 7 decibel. Going from left to right is pitch or tone. Low tones are here, high tones are here, similar to a piano, the keys across the piano. And so what we're doing is we're going across various tones or pitch and measuring how much we have to turn up the volume till you press the button or indicate that you hear the sound. And this is what normal hearing looks like, okay? You know, as this represents, you know, normal hearing with a slight dip in the high tone as you're aging, okay? But what you will notice is you have a wide, broad bandwidth of hearing. It starts around 50 hertz and goes all the way up to 20,000 hertz, but this is how we measure it. It's going the full complement of sounds. As we continue to age, you'll notice you get some decrease in the low tones, but you get a much more decrease in the high tones. And this gently downwardly sloping pattern is what we call presbycusis, or a hearing loss of aging, okay? And what you'll see in this is you hear better in the low tones than you do in the high tones. And that becomes important in terms of words and what you can and can't hear. It continues to progress. And so this is why people will say that they don't have a hearing loss, because they're still hearing the lower parts of words. And the lower parts of words are vowels, A, E, I, O, and U. So when somebody speaks to them, they hear that part, so they know people are talking to them. What they don't hear is what occurs here, which are the consonants. And the consonants are the softer parts of words, the parts of words that give it meaning, okay? So this is what happens. So as I talked about the compensation of hearing loss, what I said was you use speech reading, looking at people's face, mouth, and lips. And so this is something that we all develop before we develop spoken language, because as soon as a baby's born, the parents start, mouthing to them and doing expressions. And you can tell a lot by people's expressions and the shape of their mouth and lips. And so as the hearing loss develops here, you can look at somebody's lips and tell the difference between wife and wipe. And that's why what you have here is this is what you don't hear, but you compensate for it. Additionally, you can use context. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. We know that the cat sat on the mat. It makes more sense than the cat sat on a map. And that's because when you contextually put it, cats don't sit on maps, they sit on mats. So even if you don't hear the T or the P, your brain will automatically fill it in. And so that's why as people develop hearing loss, they don't even realize it. What they will say sometimes is people are mumbling, or they will start to realize in certain difficult listening environments, they have problems. So what are those problems? Well, if you add background noise, then this becomes more pronounced. The hearing loss becomes more apparent to you because you already have a hearing loss. Then you add background noise. And based on that, what happens is you don't communicate as effectively. The second thing that makes it worse is when people turn away, or in the current environment, when people are wearing masks. Those two things make it so you don't get the speech reading. And because of that, people then don't communicate as well, and they'll say they don't hear as well. So they'll say, when my loved one turns away from me, they mumble. They're not mumbling. It's just the person with hearing loss loses speech reading, and that becomes a problem. And we've had a bunch of people with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic whose hearing loss got worse. Well, it wasn't that, it was they could no longer lip read because of masks. The third thing is people have hearing problems at the beginning of conversations, right? So when you first start it, you're not tracking what people are talking about. And based on that, your brain can't fill in the words. And that's why people only let people speak, people with hearing loss let people speak for one or two sentences and then they interrupt them. That's because it means they're not tracking the conversation. So this is all the patterns, and what you're seeing is the gray hairs representing the aging, and this is a worsening and worsening. And what you can see is you start having problems with the F, the S, the T, and the H, and then the G, the T, and the SH, and as you progress, it gets worse and worse. So this is where things become an issue, from 2000 hertz all the way to 8000 hertz, or hertz or cycles per second, or the frequency. But this is where it manifests itself. So the vowels you hear well, but the consonants you don't. So what I tell people is it's like playing Wheel of Fortune. In Wheel of Fortune, you can buy as many vowels as you want. And the reason is because the vowels never solve the puzzle. It's the consonants, the softer parts of words, that give the words meaning. And that's what you have to guess in Wheel of Fortune. And that's exactly where the hearing loss happens in the hearing loss of aging. This is why it becomes a burden on your memory, because you're essentially, with every word playing Wheel of Fortune, you're filling in the blanks that you don't know. So let me tell you about Earlens. This is a diagram of the two parts of Earlens, okay? And so breaking it all down, this is the processor. So this is the brains, the rechargeable battery. The battery sits in a cradle and is rechargeable. The microphone, and in this is a electromagnetic coil. So it is different. In a typical hearing aid, this is actually a speaker. In the Earlens, this is an electromagnetic coil. This sends electromagnetic waves down the ear canal, and then it's received by this electromagnetic coil. So there isn't sound sent down the ear canal, and that's an important difference with the Earlens. It's electromagnetic energy. So what is sent down is the energy to drive this and the information. So this is what we call the tympanic lens, okay? So this plastic part right here is based off of an impression or mold that is taken of your ear. So this is a custom fit, custom made device for you. And this doesn't sit on your eardrum. It goes around the perimeter of the eardrum, not the eardrum itself. And so it kind of holds this other part of the mechanism in place. This is the motor, and on the bottom part, there's a little driver that touches just the bottom end of the first bone of hearing and drives it and provides the sound and information. And so this is a pretty amazing and revolutionary product and hearing device, okay? And you know what? I'm not the only one that thinks it. Time Magazine thinks it as well. In 2020, this was named a top 100 inventions for 2020, and that's the Earlens hearing contact system. So even as you know, they call a bunch of this, and um, they call all of the different inventions, and they use this to name which ones are the most impactful, and the Earlens is one of those. So this is a comparison between what we would call a traditional, or what we call an air conduction hearing aid, okay, and the Earlens. So what you can see is the outer part basically looks the same. You have the battery, a microchip processor, a microphone, controls. In here on the regular hearing aid is the speaker. Okay, so essentially a speaker goes in the ear canal, sends sound down. It will drive the eardrum, which will push the ear bones, which will present information. And so this represents the bandwidth of the information sent through a traditional air conduction hearing aid. Now, there is something that restricts the bandwidth of this. Okay, so now when you think of a speaker that's in your automobile, or in a movie theater, or surround sound, there are really two parts. There's the bass, the treble. The tweeter, and the bass or the treble part of a speaker. So the treble bass part gives the low tones, and the tweeter gives a high tone. And if you've ever looked at these speakers, they have to have a certain amount of space between the two. And certainly they are larger than your ear canal. And so that becomes one of the restrictions, is we can't actually fit a tweeter and a treble and a tweeter in there, a bass part and the high pitched part. And so a design compromise to get this small enough is there's only one component, and that gives you a narrower band of sound presentation. Okay, and I'll show you later what that narrower band is. So what happens is the sound goes down and drives it. Now, the second thing that can happen is some of the sound, if you make this loud enough, will escape out of the ear canal and will go back to the microphone, which is right here. And that's when you get a whistle or a squealing of a hearing aid, and that's what we call feedback. And so at some point, the hearing aids get turned up to the point where the sound escapes out the ear canal and goes to here and cause feedback. So that limits the amount of volume a hearing aid can be, because there are patients who will say, I keep on going back to my hearing aid person and it whistles. And that's because you, the patient, are likely looking for more volume than the device can actually give you. And that's because you don't feel that you're hearing everybody or getting those high pitched consonants. Okay, so when you go back and you look at this, if there's a limitation to how much an air conduction hearing aid can get, which is about 60 dB, then this part, you can't get it. So if you have a more severe frequent hearing loss, you're not getting this part of the hearing spectrum, because the hearing aid can't get loud enough to correct for that loss. And that becomes one of the problems. So that's what happens. Now, in terms of the Earlens, what you'll see is it basically works differently, to the extent that it picks up the sound, it processes it, and then it sends low powered radio signals down to the lens. So there is no sound escaping out and going back. The other thing is because the motor doesn't have a size issue in terms of the frequency presentation, because you're not driving sound, the motor can present a broader amount, the driver in here, the piezoelectric driver, which can provide a broader spectrum of hearing. So as you can see, that's represented here, you can get a broader spectrum of hearing, and you can actually get more volume presented to you. So those are the two fundamental advantages of Earlens compared to conventional or traditional hearing aids. So this is the benefits of the Earlens, which is a direct drive technology. It's direct drive because it's directly touching your first bone of hearing and driving it directly, as compared to the acoustic hearing aid that puts a microphone at the superficial part of your ear canal and drives it down. So perfect hearing is from 20 hertz or cycles per second to 20,000. Earlens goes from 100 hertz to 10,000 hertz. And you can see the conventional hearing aid, as I explained, because you can't put a woofer and a tweeter in the ear canal, has this narrower band. And so you can see it falls off around 4,000 to 6,000. Okay, now let's go back and look at this slide, 4 to 6,000, right? And so it's to hear, and all of this stuff at this part of the speech frequencies aren't being rehabilitated. And that's one of the reasons that it's not as satisfying of a rehabilitation. Okay, so let's look at this. So this is a representation of what the bandwidth or the frequency range of a regular hearing aid is, and this is the broad bandwidth of the Earlens. So again, this was 100 to 10,000. This is 1,000 to a little over 4,000. So this here is what we call the speech banana. This is where normal speech is, and it's going over all the different letters. The O, the I, the U, the P, the H, the CH, the SH, the sh, t, the th, the F, and the D. And so you can see that there are parts on both ends of the speech banana that the acoustic hearing aid won't give you correction for. And that's one of the reasons we'll complain. But you can also see the dog, the piano, children's voices, or birds. These are the types of things that you won't hear. And that's one of the reasons that people aren't satisfied with their hearing aids, is because they think it doesn't sound natural, or it sounds clipped or a little electronic. And so one of the things people report with Earlens is it's more natural, and that's because you get a broader bandwidth of sound, and you get all of the different consonants, and you can get all of these sounds. So it is more natural. Certainly people who appreciate music will enjoy this listening experience more so than they would a regular hearing aid. So this is what people say. I mean, these are the quotes. People will say, I'm hearing conversations and subtleties in their conversations and background noise. People say, like, I'm hearing like I've never heard before in a very long time. It's changed my life. I feel more social. I feel more connected. I enjoy music more. There's the people, the superlatives of it are amazing. And so when people get this type of hearing, they love it. They're very excited about the product. And so the question becomes, well, what do I do, or how do I do something about it? Okay. And so if you're ready to learn more about Earlens, the answer is not, well, I'm just going to go get it, although some might. What you can have is you can hear the difference. So we have appointments where people come in and they can have a demonstration. So what we can do is we can take your current hearing aids and we can put you under a set of headphones, and we can show you how your hearing is with your current hearing aids and how your hearing aids would be with Earlens. So if you want to contact us, you can contact us by phone at 602-277-HERE, which is 602-277-4327. You can email us at earlens@azhere.com, or you can text at 602-932-2970. That is the text number that sent you the reminders. So this is the process. You decide it, you schedule an ear impression. That's where I would clean your ears and take an impression of your ear. And so a liquid that then firms to a malleable or soft rubber is put into your ear canal, and that gives us an impression of your eardrum and your entire ear canal in the ear. Then 2 weeks or so later, you come in for a fitting and a programming where we get you up and running on the device. There's a 75-day trial period. And then there's the continuous hearing care. That involves making sure or doing fitting and programming adjustments. That's making sure that the lens is healthy, cleaning the instrument or the processor, and monitoring your hearing health by measuring your hearing and checking how you're doing. And so it's a comprehensive system of managing your hearing and treating your hearing loss as best as possible. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate your time. Again, this is how you can get a hold of me. This is the cover of the book that's now available on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle or in print. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to some questions and answer some questions. Okay. So let me see. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat and go and talk about all of these. There are a lot of great questions. I'm sure people are eager to learn more. So one question is how is the Earlens made for me? And so it is a custom fit product. The way it's made for you is we take an impression and I take the impression, we need an impression of both ears. And basically we do one ear at a time. You lie your ear down and your ear is filled with a liquid that then uh, firms or becomes, it's soft, but it creates a total negative or fills up your whole ear canal and your outer ear. That's removed, and then the other ear is done, and then that's sent to the company. What the company does is they scan it with a 3D scanner, and then they laser print what your ear canal and eardrum look from, and then based on that, they laser print the outer part of the ear lens. So that is this part, the plastic part. And since they've created your ear canal and the eardrum, they orient this so it fits into your ear canal and eardrum. And so that's how it's custom made for you. That takes about 2 weeks. So the next question is, does the lens cause any problems in my eardrum? And so that comes back again to the lens. So as you see, we call this a perimeter platform because it goes around the perimeter of the eardrum. And this little part here actually is the ear canal. And then the under part, which you can see here, has a little lip. So it kind of sits in the interface between your ear canal and your eardrum. And that's almost, a 90-degree angle-ish. And so it kind of sits in there and it doesn't actually sit on the beating part of your eardrum. So there's actually a hole through here where all the sound can go through. So amazingly, people who have the ear lens on, there are a couple things. One is they don't notice that there's not a large change in hearing. And the second thing is if need be, they can actually put their current air conduction hearing aids in and use them right through this. That's not what we do, but that is possible. Another question is, I have tinnitus and will Earlens be able to treat my tinnitus? Uh, the most common treatment for tinnitus is to treat hearing loss because they travel together. And so what I would tell you is Earlens may be an effective treatment for tinnitus as long as we're treating a hearing loss. And so that would take, we'd want to evaluate your hearing and see you for that. But the most common cause for people to have persistent tinnitus is for having poorly treated hearing loss. And so it does mean that if you treat your hearing loss well, which Earlens can do, you should be able to decrease your tinnitus. Next question is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I need two, but insurance only covers one. What would you recommend? So when people have hearing loss in two ears, we recommend to treat them both. Okay. The brain does better getting sound into both ears. I tell people hearing aids are synergistic, not additive. So what do I mean by that? Well, it's not one hearing aid equals one and the second hearing aid equals two. It's one hearing aid equals one. And when you have the second hearing aid, it equals four. You do much better from a communication point of view. You get much more balanced information into your brain. And so that's why we recommend two. Next question is, I have a narrow ear canals. Can I get the ear lens? And the answer is yes. And the reason is, for most patients, this perimeter platform is malleable and soft. So typically I will use an instrument to kind of open up your ear canal where it's narrow. Typically the narrowing is superficial because the outer third of your ear canal is made up of what we call soft tissue, which is cartilage and skin and muscle and all of that. The deeper 2/3 is bone. So that's typically not narrow. And so we just have to get this softer part through and then this can be placed. So usually narrow ear canals don't preclude you from getting the ear lens. The next question is how much does the ear lens cost? So the ear lens system, which is obviously the tympanic lens, the processors, as well as getting the impressions, getting it fit, and care for your ear lens for the 3 years afterwards, adjustments, monitoring of your hearing. The total cost of that care package is $12,995. This is a custom fit product. It's manufactured for you. We also have to take the impression. So, and the hearing is amazing. The next question is, how do I contact the office? So again, that's right here. You can call 602-277-4372, which is 602-277-HEAR. Email earlens@azhere.com, or text 602-932-2970. You can text on that number. Another great question. Can I exercise or will that displace the ear lens? Yes, you can exercise. You can exercise rigorously. You will be putting oil in your ear, which will lead to an adherence with fluid of the ear lens in place. There's no evidence that shaking or moving your head or anything like that would displace the lens. So you can exercise as much as you want. The next question is, does insurance cover ear lens? Most insurances do not cover hearing aids. Some insurances have what we call a hearing aid benefit, and that usually is a very specific amount of money that they will give for ear lens, or I mean, I'm sorry, for hearing aids. By and large, the answer is no. We have patients who can then go and perhaps recoup some of the costly hearing aids from their insurance, but the usual answer is no. The next question is, how long does it take to make ear lens? We send the impressions back to the company manufacturers. That's about a 2-week process for the impressions to happen, for you to then get fitted, where or the ear lens is placed, or the tympanic lens is placed in your ear canal. Next question is the ear lens different from a cochlear implant? Yes, the ear lens is markedly different from a cochlear implant. So I'm going to go back in the slide presentation and show you how it's different. Okay, so if you see both of these, they try to drive the eardrum harder to get more sound into the cochlea. That's how both the ear lens and a regular hearing aid works. In a cochlear implant, little wires are placed into the hearing organ, and they directly stimulate the nerve beyond these broken receptor cells in the hearing organ. So it is fundamentally different. The cochlear implant requires surgery. The ear lens does not. In the ear lens, the lens is placed on your eardrum in the office. So it's a non-surgically placed device, and it is not implanted. It is not put inside of your body. It's put on your eardrum. Next question is, can I get the ear lens if I've had ear surgery? The answer to that is it depends. It depends on what type of ear surgery, the status of your hearing. We gladly take a look at your ear and try to help you figure that out. If that's not the answer, then we'll do something else to get you to hear as best as possible. It doesn't preclude it. It just depends on the nature of your eardrum, the nature of the surgery, and the nature of your hearing loss. The next question, I had a sudden hearing loss. Will the ear lens help with this hearing? The means or the mechanism of your hearing loss is not as important, meaning did you have a sudden one, a gradual one, or something like that. What matters is how much hearing do you have left, and whether or not the ear lens can rehabilitate that hearing loss. And so that would take a audiologic evaluation and us to see how much hearing loss you have left, then to opine about whether or not it will work for you. I will tell you, there are people who are told they can't get a hearing aid with a regular hearing aid that do well with an ear lens. So I would not preclude, because somebody in the past told you you can't get one. I don't think that should mean that you can't get one. We, like to take a look and let you know. Our goal is to get you to hear as best as possible and present those options to you. So that's the mission of Arizona Hearing Center, is to get people to hear as best as possible. The next question is, can I get an MRI with the ear lens? The answer is no. The ear lens should be removed prior to an MRI. So I have people who come in, we take the MRI, or we take the ear lenses out in the afternoon. The next morning they get the MRI. They come back the next day after the MRI and get the ear lens put back in. So that's what we do. It's not like if you have a pacemaker where you can't get one at all. For some people with pacemakers, we can remove it and then you can go get it and put it back. So, and that's included, that we will take care of for you if you have an ear lens. The next question is, what about earwax buildup? How do I clean my ears? Well, so the first answer is you don't use Q-tips. Putting Q-tips into your ear can, one, damage your ear without the ear lens, but certainly can damage the ear lens in and of itself. Most people don't have wax problems with ear lens, but if there is, the medical team, myself, or some people who work with me will clean out the wax and make sure. And that's why we have what I call the continuous hearing care, because we want to make sure that we can take care of that. The next question is, my mom has hearing aids and does not wear them. How can I get her to wear the ear lens when she doesn't wear her current hearing aids? She might not wear her current hearing aids because of some of the stuff we talked about. Okay, so if you have a narrow bandwidth of the and you only get, you only get this area rehabilitated, your mother might be aware that she's not hearing as well. So for her, the hassle's not worth it. The reason people wear things is because they help them. So the reason I wear glasses is because I see better. The reason your mother should wear hearing aids is because with them she hears better. Maybe it's not satisfactory enough to her. So I think that bringing her in for a comparator and seeing a comparison to see what it's like and going from there would be very helpful for her. And again, we can tell you whether or not she's hearing as best as possible and what those options are. The next question is sometimes I hear a buzzing with my hearing aids. Does Earlens fix that? So I was talking about back here, I was talking about that the sound can escape and go back and cause feedback. So that's what the buzzing is. People call it buzzing, a whistling, a chirping, or something like that. That's feedback. The sound escapes here, goes into here. This makes it louder, sends it out, makes it louder and louder. And we've all experienced that. When you go to an elementary school or a high school and the principal talks and the speaker and it whistles, that's feedback. His voice, or his or her voice, I should say, is going through the speaker, hitting the microphone, getting louder, and it creates what we call a feedback loop where you get a whistling or screeching. This is happening on a smaller level. Because Earlens doesn't send the sound down, it's less likely to do that. So the other reason that people have this is because these hearing aids might be at the maximum amount for volume to be able to give that the Earlens might not be able to give that, or I'm sorry, the traditional hearing might not be able to give her the volume she wants, so it keeps on getting turned up. Or I'm sorry, that this person asked the question once, so it keeps on getting turned up and then they get whistling. Let me see. Can Earlens treat single-sided deafness? This single-sided deafness, it depends. If you have a total hearing loss in the ear, meaning no hearing at all, then the Earlens won't help. If you have hearing in the ear, but perhaps a traditional hearing aid hasn't helped you, it might be able to, the Earlens might be able to help you because there is amounts of volume and frequency bandwidth that the Earlens can give you that a traditional hearing aid can't. So I think that that's worth looking into and exploring further. Let me see. Do you have to have tried custom-made hearing aids before getting the Earlens? Most people who try Earlens have tried other hearing aids. They don't have to be custom, but you should have hearing aids that are fitted. Sometimes people will go directly to it if they have a long-standing hearing loss. When you do the comparison, we can actually only compare it if you do have hearing aids, if you want to try it, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have had it. Most of the patients who try or pursue or get Earlens have tried other hearing aids and they're dissatisfied with them, to be frank with you. Next one is, how long does the Earlens last? The warranty is for 3 years. That's very typical of other hearing devices. The device will have a warranty of 3 years. So that's the typical lifespan. Some of it's been longer, 4 or 5 years as well. Next question. I've heard hearing loss associated with Alzheimer's. Can you expand on that, please? Yes, I was talking about the work of hearing or of communicating. So if you have a hearing loss and you compensate for it with speech reading, looking at people's mouth and lips and expression, that is one way to compensate. And if you use context where your brain is processing what's been said and filling in the blanks, that takes more brain energy. Okay, now I'm going to give you an example of high blood pressure. The reason we treat high blood pressure is because over the long term, as the heart is pumping against high blood pressure, that's associated with a higher incidence of heart attack. And so the reason that we treat high blood pressure is to alleviate people of that risk or decrease that risk. Well, to the same extent, when the brain is working harder to communicate, it robs of other processes. And as we age, we get less cognitive function. And then you're using some of your cognitive reserve, your brain's ability to process, to make up for that hearing loss. And so what happens is you don't maintain normal memory and you don't maintain normal thought patterns. And that's why untreated hearing loss is associated with a higher incidence of memory problems and dementia. Okay, that's a great question. Does Medicare cover the cost of Earlens? Medicare does not cover the cost of hearing aids. Earlens is a type of hearing aid, and therefore Medicare doesn't cover it. When Medicare was adopted in the mid 1960s, hearing aids were sold by door-to-door salesmen, the same people who sold globes, fuller brushes, and encyclopedias. And so in the law, the Medicare law, it says Medicare shall not pay for hearing aids. And so that has not been reversed, and therefore Medicare does not cover them. Can I swim and scuba dive with the Earlens? Yes, you can swim and you can scuba dive. The one thing from water that is precluded is having a jet of water going into the ear, because that will go in and displace or wash out the lens. Neither of those things occur when you swim or scuba. In fact, you actually have a cushion of air usually in your ear when you swim. But even if there is water, that's okay. Next is, can I get remote care for my Earlens? We have what we call Arizona Hear Care Everywhere, which is basically providing you with hearing care wherever you are. We can do telemedicine visits with me, with the audiology staff. So there are things that we can do to take care of you while you're traveling the globe. So we will provide that care. If we need somebody to see you locally, we'll help arrange for that to happen. How can I get the Listen Up book? The Listen Up book is available. We have it at the office for you if you would like it. It's available on Amazon. You just look Listen Up and then Mark Sims, SYMS, and you'll find it there. Let me see. I had an acoustic neuroma. Will the Earlens help me? This, again, depends on the status of the hearing, not the cause of the hearing loss. So you can get a hearing loss for any particular reason, an acoustic neuroma, sudden hearing loss or something like that. It depends on how much, if you have enough hearing that can be aided, and the Earlens can give you worse hearing, can become aided. And so I would recommend an evaluation to come in and talk about it, and we'll look at your current status of your hearing and be able to tell you whether or not that can help you. Is there a warranty to the Earlens? Yes, it's a 3-year warranty for the Earlens. When I use my current hearing aids, my canals itch. Does Earlens cause itching as well? Typically, it does not. One of the things that we do to get this preliminary platform to adhere to your ears, we have you put oil in your, excuse me, oil in your ear canal, and that enables it to adhere. And so that oil will actually oftentimes treat the itching as well. So most people who had itching before Earlens do not after. If that doesn't help you, there are other things that we can do and strategies we have to decrease ear itching. So we can help you with that. Let me see. Is there a trial period for the Earlens? Yes. As it says right here, there's a 75-day trial period for you to see whether or not the Earlens is right for you. It's typical of other hearing aids as well. Ours is longer than most. Some have 30 days, ours is 75 days. Is the Earlens an implant? No, it is not an implant. It is placed upon your eardrum, not in your eardrum. It's in the air of your ear canal, laying on your body, not in your body. So we do not implant it. How is the Earlens placed? Great question. So basically you lie back in the examination chair, a microscope is used down your ear canal. I will typically dilate the ear canal with an instrument that spreads open the superficial soft tissue or cartilage part of your ear canal, and then using a holder, it will get passed in and put into place. Then I have a little tester where I can send some radio waves to the Earlens to see if it's working, and then you'll get it adjusted by our hearing technology team. How much does the Earlens cost? The Earlens cost $12,995. Why do I need follow-up care for an Earlens? Well, I was talking about how high blood pressure is an issue. And so as an example of why we treat hearing loss. So if you went and you got your blood pressure treated and your primary care doctor gave you a blood pressure medicine and said, okay, take it easy, we don't need to see you again, you'd be kind of befuddled. I mean, what they do is they bring you back, they measure your blood pressure, make sure it hasn't gotten higher, make sure it's still under control. Well, we do not consider this getting a device. This is getting your hearing loss treated, and that's why it is continuous hearing care. Arizona Hearing Center is different. We do not give people hearing aids. We treat people's hearing loss. There's a fundamental difference. It's not about getting an object in your ear. It's about making sure that your hearing loss is effectively and comprehensively treated and continually cared for. We want to make sure you're continuously hearing as best as possible. So it's not a, once and go type of thing. Next question is, how do I get my 80-year-old mother to get hearing aids? She thinks she hears fine. I know she has a hearing loss. You probably both are right. She thinks she hears fine because she communicates effectively in her mind. She doesn't hear perfectly or well. She has a high tone hearing loss, and she compensates for that. As I talked about with speech reading, looking at people's face, mouth, and lips, and context, with that, she is able to hear well. But what you notice is when it's more difficult, background noise, somebody turned away, new conversation, she'll say huh or what. So her experience is she doesn't have hearing loss, although she has hearing loss. So you need to, I would suggest you come in for a hearing test with her. That's one of the things. The other thing is frankly, patients are not good at assessing their own hearing. It's kind of like me saying, well, I don't have high blood pressure, even though I'm measuring your blood pressure and it's 210 over 110. Just because you can't perceive it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And her hearing loss does exist. One of the other things is like, so for instance, when you have vision problems, you can no longer see the letters, you can't make it out. So you have an experience that's distorted. In hearing loss, you just don't hear it. So people don't know what they're not hearing. So people do not experience hearing loss. What they experience and realize their hearing loss the most is once they treated it, they realize how much they weren't hearing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Next is, will this work if I have a conductive hearing loss? It may. If you have a mild conductive hearing loss, it might help with that. It's not for pure conductive hearing loss. It's for sensorineural hearing loss, nerve hearing loss with a conductive hearing loss. So we'd have to evaluate you and also want to know the cause of your conductive hearing loss to see whether or not, that's something that would preclude us from using the Earlens. But I would recommend a comprehensive evaluation. Do I need one Earlens or two? You need two. I tell people that you need both ears to hear as best as possible, and you would need two. What do patients say about Earlens hearing? They say it's the best they've ever heard. It's natural. They can hear better in background noise. Speech is clearer. The sound is more rich. Music sounds better. There are many superlatives that patients tell us, and the patients who have this love this. We have multiple patients in the music and sound industry who just love this this rehabilitative device, this hearing device. Is there any current research on Earlens? The answer is yes, there is. There are multiple journal articles that have been published about Earlens. There's also the FDA approval, and so you can Google and read those types of things. The next one is, you look great, good luck. Well, that's very nice. I think that's my lovely wife complimenting me. Thanks, Maria, I love you. Thank you for that compliment and good luck. The next is, how is the Earlens powered? The Earlens is powered by radio signals being sent down from here and being reserved here. So both the energy, which is invisible, and the information is sent down the eardrum. The battery is here and it is rechargeable. So they sit in a cradle overnight and then you can use them all day. How do I contact the office? 602-277-HERE, which is 602-277-4327. Email earlens@azhere.com or text 602-932-2970. How do I get an Earlens if you want to get one? You come in and schedule for Hear the Difference. You can come in and schedule this where we'll do a comparison. We have a bunch of appointments reserved for people who want to do this. Call and we'll work with your schedule and get that going. Let me see. There's two thank yous. You're welcome. I hope that you've enjoyed this information. It's been my pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate you spending some of your day with me. I want you to hear well and have a great day. And thank you for your time. You will get a recording of this webinar sent to you soon. And we hope to help you hear better in the near future. Again, hear well. Thank you. And have a great day.